My ex lied that I was abusive to get sympathy from her friends, so I released the truth online, watched everyone turn against her lies. I'm a 29-year-old guy. And I thought I'd finally found peace when I met Claire. After years of hollow relationships and quiet loneliness, she appeared like a calm after a long storm. She was everything I didn't know I needed, soft-spoken but funny, caring without being clingy, and the kind of person who looked at you like you were the only one in the room. We met through mutual friends at a game night. I still remember how her laugh carried across the room, not loud, but bright, like it belonged in a memory. We started talking that night about the things we'd both survived: toxic families, failed relationships, the exhaustion of pretending we were fine. There was this instant connection, like our scars recognized each other. Within weeks, we were inseparable. She'd come over after work with takeout, barefoot and humming some random tune, saying, "Your place feels more like home than mine," and honestly, it started to feel true. The early months were perfect in a way that felt unreal. We'd fall asleep on the couch watching old sitcoms, or take spontaneous road trips just to watch sunsets in silence. Her presence made everything feel lighter, even the mundane parts of life. I found myself laughing more, cooking again, sending good morning texts without effort. For the first time in years, I thought, this is what peace feels like. But every now and then, something strange would surface: small, fleeting moments that didn't fit the picture, like how she'd cry over a casual joke, or twist a tiny misunderstanding into something bigger, saying, "I guess I just care more than you do." I'd comfort her, tell her she was overthinking, and she'd melt into my arms again. At the time, I thought it was love how deeply she felt things. Now I realize it was the first warning sign I ignored. Looking back, the shift was so slow, I almost didn't notice it. It started with little things: Claire getting quiet when I mentioned grabbing lunch with a coworker, or sighing when I said I'd be visiting my parents over the weekend. At first, she'd laugh it off with a half smile and say, "I just miss you when you're gone." It sounded innocent, sweet even. But the sweetness came with invisible strings attached. I began rearranging my schedule without realizing why. Canceled a hangout here, skipped a family dinner there just to avoid upsetting her. She always had this way of turning guilt into affection. "You're the only person who makes me feel safe," she'd whisper after a fight, eyes wet, voice trembling. And in that moment, I'd crumble. Because who wants to be the reason someone they love feels unsafe? Soon, it wasn't just my time she managed, it was my words. She'd replay conversations and pick them apart, finding hidden meaning in every pause or tone shift. Once, she accused me of being distant because I didn't text for 30 minutes while driving. I laughed it off, but her silence afterward felt like punishment. When I apologized, she finally smiled and said, "See? That's all I wanted, for you to care enough to notice." Her mood started to dictate the rhythm of my days. If she was happy, the world felt bright again. If she was upset, everything dimmed. I began measuring my worth by her reactions, constantly asking if she was okay, if we were okay. And she loved that. The reassurance, the attention, the control disguised as closeness. I told myself I was just being a good boyfriend, attentive, caring, patient, but the truth is, I was slowly being trained to disappear inside her emotions. And by the time I realized that, she'd already made my life revolve around her. It didn't happen all at once. It was like a slow tightening of the walls around me. Claire never told me to cut anyone off. She just made it uncomfortable to keep them around. When I'd mentioned meeting my best friend, Jason, she'd tilt her head and ask, "Do you even enjoy spending time with him?" "He always makes fun of you." The way she said it sounded like concern, not manipulation. But soon, I stopped mentioning Jason altogether. Then came my family. My mom would call, asking when I'd visit, and Claire would sigh, "I just don't feel welcome there." Your sister looks at me like I'm intruding. I'd argue that it wasn't true, but she'd cry, saying, "It's fine. I just want you to be happy." Those words always disarmed me. I just want you to be happy. Somehow, they always led to me staying home with her. Before long, my world had shrunk to a single apartment filled with her presence. My evenings that used to be spent playing basketball or catching up with old friends turned into nights of comforting.
Claire.
Through emotional storms I never caused. She'd curl up beside me and whisper, "You're the only person who really gets me," and it felt like a compliment. One didn't realize it was a cage being built brick by brick when Jason stopped by one day, unannounced. She acted polite but distant. As soon as he left, she turned to me and said, "He doesn't like me, does he? I can feel it." Her tone made me defensive. I ended up apologizing for Jason's behavior. That was the moment she knew she could make me choose. I started seeing less and less of the people who grounded me, reminded me of who I was before her, and the fewer of them I saw, the more her version of reality became the reality. By the time I realized how small my world had become, she wasn't just my girlfriend, she was my entire environment. And in her world, there was no space for anyone but her. It started over something so small it's almost embarrassing to admit. I forgot to text her back during a meeting. 2 hours, that's all it was. When I finally saw her messages, there were 9 of them, each one angrier than the last. "Are you ignoring me? Just say you don't care." I knew it. By the time I called her, she didn't answer. Instead, she posted a cryptic story online, a black screen with the words, "Some people show their true colors when you need them most." That night, when I drove to her place to talk, she greeted me in tears. "You made me feel invisible," she said, voice trembling. "I was terrified something happened to you." Her words were emotional daggers wrapped in silk. I tried to explain that my phone was on silent, that I'd been in a meeting. But logic didn't matter, only emotion did. She sobbed louder, pacing the room, saying, "You never listen. You never care." Eventually I apologized, not because I was wrong, but because I was exhausted. She calmed instantly, burying her face in my chest, whispering, "I just need to know you love me." The next day, however, was worse. A mutual friend texted me, "Hey man, what's going on between you and Claire? She's been upset, said you yelled at her last night." My stomach dropped. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't even raised my voice. But somehow, in her retelling, I'd become the villain, the angry boyfriend who snapped. I told myself it was a misunderstanding, that she was just venting emotionally. But deep down, something cracked. It was the first time I realized Claire didn't just twist emotions, she rewrote them, and I had no idea this was only the beginning of her rewriting me after that night. Something in our relationship shifted, or maybe it finally showed its true shape. Every disagreement turned into a battlefield. If I said something to direct, I was cold. If I took too long to reply, I was emotionally unavailable. It felt like walking barefoot through glass, every word. Every breath had consequences. I remember one evening vividly. I came home from work drained, and she was sitting on the couch, arms crossed. "You didn't say you loved me this morning," she said flatly. I blinked, confused. "I was running late," I replied. Her voice trembled. "You don't care anymore." Within minutes, she was crying uncontrollably. I tried to comfort her, apologizing again for something so trivial. But behind those tears was something calculated, a pattern forming. Every outburst ended the same way, with me begging for forgiveness just to calm her down. Our love turned into damage control. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her emotional hostage. She began sharing vague posts online. Things like healing from invisible wounds and "It hurts when the one who's supposed to protect you is the one who breaks you." I didn't think much of it until friends started reaching out, asking if we were okay. Then came the final argument. I told her I couldn't live like this anymore. I needed space, peace, anything that didn't feel like constant chaos. She stared at me, eyes red, and said, "So you're just abandoning me like everyone else?" Her voice cracked in a way that made me freeze. I wanted to be strong, but I caved again. For a few more miserable weeks, when I finally left, she didn't chase me. She just looked at me with a tearful smile and said, "You'll regret this when people find out who you really are." At the time, I thought she meant emotionally. I didn't know she was warning me about the storm she was about to unleash. A few weeks after the breakup, I was finally breathing again. My apartment felt empty, but peaceful. No tension, no emotional traps, just silence. I told myself I'd made the right choice. But then one morning a message from Jason popped up. Dude, have you seen what Claire's posting? At first I thought it was another vague quote or emotional venting. But when I opened the screenshots he sent, my chest tightened. Claire had written a long post on her private account, paragraphs of her story. She claimed she had escaped an emotionally abusive relationship, painting herself as the fragile survivor and me as the manipulative, controlling boyfriend who isolated her from everyone. The comments were brutal. People I knew, mutual friends, co-workers, even her cousins, flooded the post with sympathy and anger. You're so strong for leaving him. Nobody deserves that kind of treatment. I knew something was off about him. Every word felt like a dagger made of disbelief. She hadn't just twisted the truth, she'd inverted it. All the nights I comforted her during her meltdowns, all the apologies I made to keep her from spiraling, they'd become evidence of my cruelty. I tried calling her, texting her, even asking mutual friends to talk to her, but no one responded. I was radioactive now. By the end of the week, the post spread beyond her private circle. Screenshots made their way to public pages, local friend groups, and even my workplace Slack chats. A colleague quietly pulled me aside and said, "Hey man, I don't know what's true, but HR's asking questions." That night I sat in the dark, scrolling through hundreds of comments from strangers calling me a monster. I felt a strange mix of fear and numbness, like watching your reputation burn while you're locked behind glass. It wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It was character assassination, and it was working. The days that followed felt unreal, like I was living someone else's life. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt a spike of dread. Messages poured in from people I hadn't spoken to in years, not to check on me, but to say things like, "I can't believe you did that to her," or "I thought you were better than this." Some blocked me without a word. Others just ghosted. It was like watching my entire social circle dissolve overnight. Even my closest friends grew distant. Jason tried to defend me at first, but he told me, "Bro, people don't want to hear your side. They already picked a villain." My sister called, hesitant, and asked, "Did you actually yell at her?" That broke something inside me. She wasn't accusing me. She was uncertain. The doubt in her voice hurt more than the hate from strangers. At work, whispers followed me through the hallways. Coworkers stopped meeting my eyes. A project I'd been leading for months was quietly reassigned. My boss called it a temporary adjustment until things cooled down. The humiliation was suffocating at night. I'd lie in bed, replaying every argument, every apology, wondering if maybe I had said something cruel without realizing it. Gaslighting doesn't stop when the relationship ends. It lives in your head, echoing every time you doubt yourself. I started believing I was the problem, that maybe I deserved this exile. I deleted my social media accounts, stopped going out, and avoided calls. The silence that once felt peaceful now felt like a punishment. I was alone, stripped of reputation, friendships, and self-worth, all because one person decided to rewrite reality. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I received a message that would shatter what little hope I had left. The message came late at night from an old friend named Lily, someone who'd quietly stepped back when the rumors started. Her text simply said, "I think you should see this." Attached were screenshots from a private group chat Claire was in. My heart pounded as I scrolled. There she was, laughing with friends about how easy it was to make people believe. One message hit like a punch. "He's too scared to defend himself." That's what makes it fun. At first I couldn't believe it. I thought maybe they were faked or taken out of context. But then I saw the timestamps, the tone, the way she phrased things exactly like she used to during fights. It was her. Every single word. Lily told me she'd confronted Claire after noticing inconsistencies in her story. Claire brushed her off, saying, "He's just better at hiding his cruelty." But when Lily dug deeper, she found something worse: edited screenshots. Claire had cropped out her own texts and twisted mine to look aggressive. Whole conversations were rewritten. What shocked me most was how careful she'd been. It wasn't impulsive, it was methodical. She'd been preparing her narrative for months. That night I scrolled through old messages, call logs, even voice notes. The evidence was all there. Her guilt trips, her apologies, her sudden mood swings after manipulating me. Every time she claimed I'd yelled or ignored her, there was proof I hadn't. My hands trembled as I realized. I'd been documenting everything without even knowing it, saving myself by instinct. Anger replaced fear. The same clarity you get after surviving a long fever, painful but freeing. She hadn't just destroyed my name. She'd built an entire lie around it. For the first time in months, I wasn't just the victim of her story. I was the one holding the truth. Once the fog of disbelief lifted, I turned coldly methodical. I opened my laptop and started sorting through everything: messages, emails, photos, timestamps, voice notes. Every conversation that once made me ache now became a data point. I scrolled through nights where she'd accused me of abandoning her, only to find her apologizing hours later for overreacting. I listened to old voicemails where she whispered, "I know I make things worse sometimes. Please don't leave me." Each file was another thread of truth she couldn't undo. I spent 3 nights piecing everything together. It felt like building a case, not out of revenge, but survival. I didn't edit a word. I didn't add commentary. I just laid it out in a timeline: screenshots, context, dates, and proof of every manipulation. I wanted the world to see the pattern, the emotional blackmail, the control disguised as fragility. By the 4th night, I had a 30-page document, a forensic map of our relationship. I added one simple introduction: "This is the truth, unedited. You can decide who the abuser really was." Then I hesitated. My finger hovered over the post button for nearly an hour. I kept hearing her voice in my head, the one that used to say, "You'll regret this when people find out who you really are." For a second, I almost believed her again. But then I thought about the messages from you. Never forget the moment I finally hit post. It was 3 in the morning. The world outside my window was silent, but my heartbeat wasn't. I uploaded everything: the screenshots, the messages, the recordings. I didn't add drama, didn't insult her, didn't defend myself with emotion. I just wrote one line at the top: "If you're going to tell my story, tell it honestly." Then I closed my laptop and sat there in the dark, unsure if I'd just destroyed my life or reclaimed it. By morning, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. At first, I was terrified. I thought the hate was returning. But when I opened the notifications, I froze. Dozens of comments said the same thing: "Wait, this changes everything." People began connecting dots, pointing out inconsistencies in her posts, comparing timestamps, sharing her own words that contradicted her story. The truth had oxygen now. Within hours, her sympathy army turned silent. Then came the shift. The same people who once called me a monster started tagging her, asking, "Did you fake this?" Others demanded explanations. A few even apologized to me publicly. I didn't reply to any of them. I just watched Claire, of course, tried to defend herself. She posted a shaky video claiming I doctored everything, but it backfired. Someone found her earlier screenshots and matched them against mine. The edits were obvious: cropped timestamps, missing replies, subtle inconsistencies. The illusion shattered in real time. By the 2nd day, she deleted her posts. By the 3rd, her account vanished. My evidence spread farther than her lies ever did. Friends reached out saying, "Man, I'm sorry. I should have trusted you." I didn't feel triumphant, just free. It wasn't victory, it was vindication. Not loud, not dramatic, just the quiet sound of truth finally standing on its own. And for the first time in months, I could breathe without guilt. The aftermath wasn't explosive, it was eerily quiet. The same people who once filled my inbox with accusations now tiptoed back into my life with soft apologies. "I didn't know the full story," they'd say. "She seemed so convincing." I nodded, but inside, I felt hollow. You can't rebuild trust with people who only believe in your innocence when it's convenient, Claire. On the other hand, unraveled publicly. Word spread fast: the screenshots, the lies, the fabricated evidence. Friends she'd manipulated started turning on her, demanding explanations she couldn't give. One of her closest confidants even messaged me saying, "She told us you screamed at her that night, but your voice note proved otherwise." I'm so sorry. It didn't bring satisfaction. It brought clarity, a bitter kind of peace. She tried to reach out once. A single text. You ruined me. I stared at it for a long time before replying, no, you did that yourself. Then I blocked her number. I didn't want revenge anymore. I just wanted silence, the kind that wasn't born from fear or guilt, but from closure. The strange part was how anticlimactic it all felt. No dramatic confrontation, no fiery apologies, just the slow fading of a false narrative. People began treating me normally again, but I couldn't forget how quickly they'd believed her. I learned that truth doesn't travel fast. It limps behind lies. It's bleeding, but it always arrives eventually. When I walked through my office that week, no one whispered. No one avoided me. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to prove who I was. Claire's name became a warning. Story people whispered about manipulation and lies. Mine became a reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's simply being right and surviving long enough to prove it. Months passed. Life slowly returned to something that felt real again. The noise faded. No more rumors. No more pity. No more justifications. I started seeing friends again, cautiously at first, still testing if they saw me or the ghost Claire created. But the world had moved on. People forget scandals quickly when they're not fed by drama. For the first time, I was grateful for that kind of forgetfulness. I threw myself into work, started therapy, and began reclaiming pieces of myself I didn't realize she'd stolen: my humor, my confidence, my sense of peace. My therapist told me something that stuck. Abusers don't always hit. Sometimes they rewrite your story. And that was it. Claire had weaponized words. But I'd learned that truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to endure. Every now and then, I'd get messages from people who'd followed everything online. Some would say, "I'm glad you stood up for yourself." Others admitted, "I didn't believe you at first." I never responded with anger. I just said, "Thank you." Because surviving something like that changes how you measure victory. It's no longer about proving someone wrong. It's about reclaiming your peace. I still think about her sometimes, not with hate, but with distance. She'll always be the person who taught me the cost of staying silent. I used to think dignity meant keeping quiet while others misunderstood me. Now I know silence can be a weapon used against you. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. People can lie, twist, and manipulate, but time has a way of filtering noise. Truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just waits. Patiently, I didn't destroy her. I just stopped letting her lie, and that quiet, unshakable peace was the most satisfying ending I could ever ask for.